Okay, here we are again, another Thursday night. And last week, I talked about dragons. And I wanted to show the differentiation between the Eastern and Western perspective of the dragon. And really coming back to ultimately, well, in the West, especially from a religious sense, the dragon was evil. But we're studying an East Asian Chinese martial art, Bagua Zhang, which is really rooted in this natural principles, natural laws, and it's also how the dragon was used, meaning representing nature. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about it, and if there's time, I will take questions. But in Bagua Zhang, there's a purpose for everything we do. So you learn Qinglong or blue dragon posture. And those who are more advanced, beyond beginner, you have more, including circle walking. Bagua Zhang walks the circle with a number of different postures and practices. And the dragon posture is the main one, really, in our style. Although we have other animals, lion and bear and snake, etc. Each have a different sort of chi to them, spirit to them. And the dragon can be considered the maybe most important, at least to start. Because the posture itself, when practiced correctly, and even beginners doing the fanzhang, right? You go into the dragon posture, holding the hand in a position where you're looking through here, basically, with the perfect posture, head tall, strong back, and you move with stillness around the center in the most basic circle walking. Or if you're the beginner, basically not circle walking, just standing still, feet together and moving the body to coordinate with the hands. So just to digress slightly, we simplify things with a stationary exercise. So a beginner will learn how to coordinate the body with the hands. And then the next level is to add the step. And that's repeated in many different techniques that we do, many different skills that we want to develop. So circle walking, the originator, or the one attributed to originating Bagua, the one who brought it to the public, Dong Hai Chuan, said that that's the most important thing we do. Walk the circle. You want to be better at fighting, you walk the circle. You want to be better spiritually, you walk the circle. You want to improve your health, you walk the circle. You want to have a better, stronger back, you walk the circle. And the circle's purpose, or I should say the dragon's purpose, that posture, is to raise your spirit. So what does that mean? If you try to meditate and you lie down, and you could, right? But most people fall asleep. And if you fall asleep, you're really not meditating. You're going to get the benefit of the rest. But meditation is about learning how to discipline the mind and control the mind and even reach deeper aspects of the mind. So if you're sleeping, that's not happening. And it's not going to improve your control through the day, through your day-to-day life. So proper meditation, formal meditation, has a posture. You literally have to raise the spirit. You have to sit tall and raise the spirit. If you slouch, spirit comes down. Rise up. And it's actually the reason why formal meditation, and especially for the beginner, you really have to learn how to basically sit over yourself. You have to get your head up over your body. You have to align your posture so your body holds itself up. But that only goes so far. You can really balance it to the center. But if you were to fall asleep, your heads are going to probably do this, right? you're going to fall forward. You're going to fall in some direction. You're going to eventually move off center. And so maintaining the posture, and even if you get into yogic traditions, they have the different hand forms, right? So these are to keep your attention. And focusing on the point between the eyebrow is one of the more powerful ways to raise spirit. So the dragon posture, and this is what I love so much about Bagua Zhang, it naturally includes all this. It's like it was designed, I do believe it was designed, developed from ancient martial arts to add these aspects, to raise our spirit, and to ultimately help us connect to the oneness, to all that is, just by practicing this martial art. So it truly answers to more than just the physical punching and kicking them. There's the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. Or if you want to go in the direction of physical, most people just think physical. But of course you have the focus, so then it's mental. Okay, physical, mental. Then emotional. That's where it starts to get a little deeper. How does it affect your emotions? And spiritual. Well, now we start, is this religious? And my best description of spiritual is really when you're fully engaged in something. But it's more than that. Fully engaged with the mind raised, Shen raised. So the dragon, holding the proper dragon posture, will raise the spirit. So you're walking like a meditation or moving meditation. So then the Taoist ways, the Taoist teachings, start to break it into more things. And the dragon raising the spirit, and how this does this, is by actually balancing more of our bodies internally. So there are, so you've heard of 5 elements, and there's the 5 qi, also 5 shen, is like the energies or the spirit of the different organs, which are aligned with the 5 elements. So the Shen is the spirit. And the spirit refers in Chinese medicine and in Taoism to the heart. So the first organ is the heart, and it's the emperor with, we'll call aspects of its power, like how spiritual, how powerful you are, is how balanced you are on the inside, how well the other organs are working. It's like a community. If people are all working together, then that community is more powerful and just doing better. It's working in unison. So the heart's been known as the emperor, sort of in charge. But the emperor has to rely on all the help in order to really run things. So heart mixes with, corresponds with the Shen, the spirit. The kidney corresponds with the term called Ji, which is the will. And so now you start thinking, wow, the will. You start looking at other aspects of our challenges, right? Strong will, weak will. How is your will? Bagua can strengthen the will. Think about a man, and this came up because we had a couple people with some back issues, right? I once heard from a teacher that a man with a weak back isn't a man at all. How's that? Well, if you've ever had a real back problem, your back goes out, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. You feel pretty weak, and it literally would take away your will to do anything because you're afraid to move. And one of the main aspects of a man is being strong, right? Oh, can you help me open this jar? Can you move this cabinet, this refrigerator? Yeah, and then you want to show your strength. We're very young. We like to show our strength. And without the back, we don't have that. So then it's like the will shrinks or can shrink when the kidneys, which are in the back and correspond to the back, and the bones, it's like you're weak to the bones. So one is the spirit, and now the other is your will. And it's in charge really of intention and effort to accomplish things. And really effort and perseverance for spiritual development. So many people have no concept or drive to develop spirit. And some would say one of the most, well, some I would agree, one of the problems of today's society, and it's been getting worse every decade, every generation, is further and further away from spiritual things and more emphasis on things that don't really matter, things that don't fulfill us, things that really empty us, material things and distractions, binging TV on Netflix or video games all night like people do today. And then they wonder why they're depressed. So our practice developed the Shen and developed the will. The highest level of use of will is to align ourselves with Tao. And we talked about that some last week, right? How the dragon represents nature in the Tao. This results in the Chinese concept of Wu Wei, which is inaction. Again, here's that inaction, that doing nothing on purpose, right? That spontaneous skill, this effortless action. It's like doing the right thing without trying. That's the highest level of that. So if you find yourself or someone who's that way, the will is strong, that they're more in charge of themselves and their lives, and they're probably leaving a better life in terms of just happier and more in charge of what they do and what they experience. And yeah, the Bagua practice of raising the spirit will start to raise this as well. So that's the heart and the kidneys. Next is the E. E is the ability to think, really, the intellect. And this corresponds with the spleen. And the spleen is the pancreas, it's the digestion, and it's sort of like worry and pensiveness, indecisiveness, overthinking can damage your digestion. It causes a lot of anxiety, and vice versa. If you have a lot of anxiety, it affects your digestion, has a negative impact there. So in Chinese medicine and Taoism in general, these two go together. Okay. So the capacity to conceptualize, exercise discernment, to form intent when unbalanced, unconscious, inner chatter, overthinking, pensiveness. These are all signs as a practitioner, that worrisome, pensiveness, overthinking mind, right? This is out of balance. And more likely we would treat the spleen, for example. But when it's healthy, you have more of an inner guided intelligence. You're more decisive, and it's like you make decisions with a higher understanding, if that makes sense. So again, now we talked about the heart and the kidney and the spleen, and how a Bagua practice, like walking the circle in the dragon or just practicing your Fanzhong, raising the spirit, starts to affect these other things, and how much already would that affect your life? Then we start getting into more what's considered the soul. Now, there's different ways to translate these words. One of them is po, and this corresponds to the lungs, and this is really the mortal soul, what's attached to the body. Some call it the animal spirit, or even the physical vitality, right? It's like, oh, they have good chi. This can be your po, your spirit. You have that vitality, and it shows. Without that vitality, it's hard to do much of anything, right? How can you have a strong will if you have no vitality behind it? Which is why, again, these all work together to help each other. So this is the aspect of consciousness that dissolves at the time of death. Okay, this is associated with our immediate desires. It's more short term. And the Hun is the immortal soul. So the pole corresponded to the lungs, the Hun corresponds to the liver. And this is the aspect of consciousness that continues to exist even after death of the body. This is ancient teachings in Taoism, okay? As spiritual practice deepens, the Po, or physical aspects of consciousness, better supports the Hun, or immortal aspect. This can manifest like experiencing heaven on earth. That you are so connected to all that is, that you are living in heaven. Your experience, no matter what's going on around you. This is where there's a saying, environment is stronger than will, unless the will is this strong. You think about a truly balanced, truly strong person who's training to develop these 5 chi, raising the spirit and all the organs. The Hun corresponding to the liver. The liver is also about the smooth flow of chi and blood in the body. So a person with liver issues, no matter the weight, they feel heavy. They feel held down. They feel sluggish. It's difficult to do anything again. So now we're looking at 5 organs, all affected by raising the spirit with the proper walking, right? You're walking and raising the spirit, so all the other organs, that's why the posture is so important, so that you have good chi and blood flowing through the organs. And we have a lot of if you come to the Qigong, you're practicing the Qigong, we have a lot of, we'll call them just exercises or practices to develop the organs. And this is the reason. Now, if you're looking at the spirit, the will, the intellect, your ability to think, the mortal or animal spirit or physical vitality, and then the immortal soul, sort of the consciousness that lives on, that you've developed so strongly. Let me say something about that. So all these things you're developing through your practice, what is the possibility or even reason to develop something that's you may not even believe is real? Well, here's what I want to say is that, well, one of the teachings in the Native American courses that I took with Tom Brown and studied with him, and we meditated deeply in nature and connected with nature. And his teacher, Stalking Wolf, said to him that the world we live in is the land of the living dead. What does that mean? It means most people are sleepwalking through their lives. They have been programmed like a computer, and there is really no free will for that person. We see a lot of that today. Whatever they're told, they believe, and they buy it hook, line, and sinker, and you can't argue with them. You can't convince them anything else. And it's like automated. The Taoist practice is sort of a goal to reach immortality. Immortality is related to the 5 chi. In other words, it's a purification of the self, less affected by today's world or the environment you're in, more conscious, more aware. You raise the spirit, your awareness is much higher. You're not sleepwalking through life. And the thing is, people notice. So in this physical world, your likelihood of ever having a situation, a physical self-defense situation, is down to about 2% compared to others. It's like out of 100 people, you'd be the last one or two to ever be considered to be chosen to try to mug you, for example. Now, why is that? Because the criminal, the mugger, want something. They want money. They want someone's body, maybe. They want your property. They want to take something. And they don't want trouble. So literally, this practice of raising the spirit will show to everyone around you. And so you won't be the one picked because you don't look like you're going to be easy to deal with. No punching, no kicking, no defending. Just it's like your spirit, your Shen, because you practice. So self-defense already, you're much safer just because you practice. Now go to the other side, the people who are sleepwalking through life. Yeah, easy to distract. They're already distracted. Easy to mug or take from or hurt, victimize. Very easy. Now that same person who's sleepwalking through life, not a lot of free will, living life like a program, day after day after day, just sort of doing what they have to do without any real consciousness or awareness to what they're doing or why they're doing it. Just accepting things, right? And just living with things no matter whether they're miserable or not even knowing if they're happy or why they're depressed. And then this body gives out. Now, do you think that sort of mind is going to have any real consciousness beyond the physical body? Whether or not you believe, let's say you believe that. Let's say, I mean, it is true, but if you don't believe it, pretend. A person who's not conscious in the physical world, are they going to have any ongoing consciousness beyond into the spiritual? Not likely. And that's a whole nother realm that could be a part of a discussion. People who do astral travel and out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences, how they've seen things from above, they look down, or they're in another room that their physical eyes weren't there, and yet they could see things. And so there's a separation from the physical body that has been recorded many times. So the person who has no real sense of awareness or consciousness, that time comes, they probably feel lost, blank. Maybe they'll experience whatever their vision of afterlife is. Maybe they had a lot of guilt they carried, or a lot of anger and animosity towards people, and just a lot of bad thoughts. Maybe that person thinks they're going to hell, and then they experience hell when they're out of the body. Self-created, which is no different than our physical world. One of the examples was actually being well balanced, living in harmony, and experiencing heaven on earth. Well, you can just as well experience hell on earth. And this is where our practice helps us. Are we living in hell, or are you experiencing more like heaven in spite of the world around us? Most of it is internal. Most of it is really how we see things. And these 5 chi will determine how you feel. You think you have control, you just decide to be in control of it. But if your 5 organs are out of balance, this is like the spirit of those 5 organs. If each of those is out of balance, not in harmony, you think in a community or in an empire, the emperor would be strong if all the people are a mess? No, not likely. And in times past, the emperor would probably get conquered and overthrown and killed, right? So the heart can't function well. The mind can't function well when things are out of balance. So when you have that struggle, yeah, look in the mirror and get out and practice more. And you can put yourself back in balance, because this practice was actually designed for that. And that's, again, the dragon, to raise the spirit. You raise the spirit, everything else changes in your life, because your experience of it changes. Same life, new experience. A couple of quotes I wrote down here. The most proper way to nourish the spirit is to follow or return to the Tao. Literally, the dragon, practicing with the dragon posture is designed for that. The circle walk is designed for that. Meditation. And again, that's a moving meditation. Those who are engaged in the process to nourish the 5 chi develop their will, mind, spirit, and virtue. Think about those. Your will, we already talked about that. Your mind, your spirit, and then virtue. See, virtue is that doing the right thing automatically. You just see things clearly, and you know how to make good decisions. You don't make a decision based on what you think others think you should make, what the majority say you should do. You do the right thing, even if 99 out of 100 are against you. You're the only one, but you know what's right, and you stick to it because your spirit tells you what's right. And in history, there have been many martyrs who stuck to their guns in spite of everybody being against them. But that's a very strong person spiritually who can do that. Those who remain calm and peaceful cultivate the chi to achieve harmony. This is the true spiritual development or oneness. Now think about your life. Think about your challenges. Think about how you are at work or at home, among siblings, loved ones, your children, your parents, all the different experiences you have. How many of those places do you feel calm and peaceful? And you need to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not, well, there's a reason. And this is why this practice is so powerful. And in my opinion, literally the antidote for the troubles of today. But that just reminds me of the quote that all the troubles of the world stem from a person's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. In prison, they say, in the hole, the torture of solitary confinement, the spiritually developed person laughs at that. They're happy with that. No problem. Not even a challenge. But most people lose their minds because nothing's settled, nothing's balanced inside. And so how important is that? In spite of the world, you're calmer, you're more peaceful. You're the one in your family that can sort of be that neutral party. Unbiased. Can you possibly be unbiased? Do you even know your biases? We each need to know that. Then we can reflect on it and we can see when someone we're dealing with is there's a conflict. And we can very quickly turn that. So we listen more to understand and not press them with our biases. Sometimes our biases make it impossible to learn anything. And it's probably one of the greatest pursuits of life is to learn. How do you acquire knowledge? How do you ever become a wise person if your daily way is not one of learning? So I'm going to open the floor for questions. Not a lot of time left, but let's see. Are there any hands? Yes, sir, Mr. McEwen. Let me just figure this out. Remove all spotlight videos. Okay, there you go. Yes, sir.
So when you discuss awareness, what do you consider to be the issue with Tiger Woods? When he's on the golf course, he's so focused and so aware, he's phenomenal. As soon as he steps off the course, he gets himself into all kinds of different types of trouble. What kind of a personality is that? Because he has an Asian mother, and I remember him being interviewed about his influence from his Asian mother about meditation and things like that. But it seems like he just drops it as soon as he walks off the golf course.
Yeah, I love that question, by the way. What people present, oh, now I got to figure this out again. Hold on. Spotlight. Okay. What people present in interviews, I don't know how else to say this. Don't believe anything you see on TV. You know, if you were on TV, national TV, how would you present yourself? Think about it, in fairness.
You want to give your best light.
Exactly.
I mean, you want to present the best.
Exactly. And anything, especially in their positions, any celebrity, they really have to watch themselves because it can completely change. It can completely change how everyone sees them. And in today's world, you can get canceled, right?
Right.
So they really have to be careful. I mean, what is real anymore? Can you really speak your mind and what you think? It can destroy your career for a celebrity. That's one thing. The reason why I love that question, though, is because, okay, I'll give another example. When I was growing up, I was a baseball fan. We used to watch a lot with my father, and Dwight Gooden was a great pitcher for the Mets for a couple of years. And in an interview, he was very honest because he had a lot of drug problems. And he said, when he's on the mound, I don't remember his exact words, but basically he said when he's on the mound, it's like he's the king of the throne or he's in heaven. And once he steps off the mound, it's like he's in hell. And these are my words, but that's essentially what he was saying. And it's the exact same thing you just said. And it's because he's so fully engaged in golf, Tiger Woods, that there's nothing else in his mind. But when he's not doing that, he's not developed enough spiritually to, and frankly, when you've got that kind of money, you can do anything you want. So he doesn't have that kind of will or control. He has the will to train to be great at what he is, the greatest golfer, one of the greatest golfers. But when it comes to simple decisions in his life, he's all over the place because he doesn't have that root. He doesn't have this spiritual root. Maybe he has no spiritual direction at all. I don't know. I don't know much about him, to be honest with you, other than what you just said. But this is the reason I love this question is because when you come to the dojo, we've always taught, leave your troubles out there and come in here basically pure. No judgment of yourself or anybody else, just practice. And this is what Tiger Woods could do, or Michael Jordan in basketball, or Dwight Gooden in pitching, right, in baseball. They could be 100% in their sanctuary that would bring them that ultimate peace because it's raising the consciousness when they're doing that. But what do we say next? And this is where there may be a lack of teaching, because Mike Tyson comes to mind as well. Right?
Right.
He was guided by Cus D'Amato when he was very young. And when Cus D'Amato died, the trouble began. It's that moral compass. It's that spiritual direction. It's that spiritual connection that is probably lacking without that mentor. And if you let the dojang become the mentor, myself, the teacher, just being a conduit of these teachings, that you're experiencing that peace, that calmness when training, and then you consciously have been taught to bow out and take it with you. Take it with you. Consciously choose to feel that way with your wife or your husband or your children or anywhere when you're driving. I mean, what kind of decisions, right? You just had the big accident. What kind of decisions are you making? A lot of these athletes make millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, any one of us could have 1 million to be set for life, right? But they could go bankrupt with $100 million. There's no control, no self-control, which comes back to no real spiritual mentor. to teach you what's most important. They're separated from all that is, and they're just so caught in the material. And because they can have anything they want, yeah, a lot of problems. And that's the same thing that can lead them to depression. Because you're on the top of the world that everyone else would see you as top of the world. And then there's this feeling, is this all there is? The only one that would ever ask that is someone who doesn't have any connection to spirit.
Tom Brady said that when he won like 5 Super Bowls, and they would talk to him on an interview, and he said he had a problem with anxiety and depression. He goes, it really didn't mean anything after a while. I says, and now that I'm at the top, there's nothing else to achieve, and it just feels like nothing. I just, and how many other people would love just to be playing in the game, and he's the top quarterback and won the Super Bowl. Now I think it's 7 times. So
that's why he can't retire, because I think all the inner demons would rise up.
Right.
Another great example there. You're thinking. I like that a lot.
Thanks. So.
This is a big topic. This is a big consideration for all of us, that some would say, who've traveled the world and interviewed the poorest people, that they're the happiest. Seems crazy, right? Money can make life a lot easier. You can do a lot of joyful things. But I think the poor person, or the person who doesn't use up all their energy to strive and accomplish, for one thing, or it's all been handed to you, right? The silver spoon. The poor person searches more for God, looks more for that meaning, and is probably more likely to find it because life is simpler that way. You can't go out and buy whatever you want, so you're really more likely to maybe go to the temple or the church or whatever spiritual thing, or learn to meditate, or take up these kind of arts. Years ago, we had 2 schools. One school was in a obvious upper middle class, if not, even higher than that, pretty rich class. And of course the one in Bergenfield. And Bergenfield's very blue collar. And the other one is like everybody's pulling up in a Mercedes and a Porsche. That second school never took hold, because the people, they would have no problem giving me $1,000 an hour to teach them. But they want me to do the work for them too. It felt like. It's like they want the private class, and they want me to, just, and then week to week, there's no progress. They don't have the drive, because all their energy is being used to pay for those Mercedes, Porsche, or the, $2 million home. It was a very interesting experience to see that you would think, all these people have the money. That's not going to be, what's that, disposable income. So it's not going to be a challenge for them. But there's a reason why they have the money they have, because that's their whole focus. And so they think it would be cool to learn martial arts, but they don't really have the time and energy to devote to that, because what they found, or I think is most important, is how they look to their friends, right? What they can show their friends, and also to get more and more money. I mean, billionaires, you think about Bezos, or Elon Musk, or Gates, or any of these guys, they, imagine being the richest person in the planet. Do they compete with each other? You think Bezos likes if somebody says he's the richest today because the stocks went up or something? There's this inner, yes, I'm number one. And it's like, why does that matter? It gets to the point, it's infinite dollars. It's silliness. But somehow that's still important. Or the billionaire, they got 10 billion, they lost 5 billion, and then they jump off a bridge. It's like, you still got 5 billion. What's the problem? But because they don't look good to their friends, and I'm putting some of those words in their mouths, obviously. It's my interpretation. But when you don't have much, it looks ridiculous. And so that's why this training can be more rewarding. Literally, you get out what you put in. And then maybe money comes or whatever else it is you want. But you maintain that awareness of connection. You maintain your awareness of the divine. And that's the most important thing. And then you can pursue. But you never lose that root, that spiritual root. And then you could be a multi-billionaire and have peace and live heaven on earth, or have nothing and have heaven on earth, because it's inside that matters. There was a hand up. Raise your hand physically, not in the chat. Somebody raised a hand in the chat. Who was that? Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Let me mute one here. Are you mute? Oh, you're muted yourself, huh? And
yes, sir.
Here we go. Oh, you unmuted yourself. Here, I think I have control. And you have control. Yes, sir. Okay. Let me get you up here as well. Why am I having such a problem with this? Okay, you're on. Bam. Okay.
My question is, what do you make of the dichotomy between good and evil within a person, or especially in regards to the spiritual path? Or is that even something to consider?
Yeah, another big topic. But I can make it very simple, I think. I like to think more of cause and effect than good and evil. Because think today of the political sides, right? They each look at each other as evil. People in the U.S. might think of people in the Middle East as evil. People in the Middle East look at the people in the U.S. as evil. It's all over the world. It's like, how do you say good and evil? Perspective matters, right? But cause and effect. If I do this, I get that. If I do that, I get this other thing. Is this other thing serving me and others? In my experience, when you're more conscious, and that's why one of the examples was the inaction, right? It was the Wu Wei, spontaneous, skillful or effortless action, inaction, right action. Now, what is right action? It sort of comes naturally. You know, it goes back to the golden rule, but you don't have to be told that because it's natural for you. You automatically treat others the way you want to be treated. And I believe most people are like that, actually. I think programming, television, everything else is what's screwing people's heads up. But I think we are naturally going to be better to each other because, frankly, if I smack you in the face, you're going to want to smack me back, right? You think about that. It doesn't take that much high-level consciousness to realize that. And so if you want to think of good and evil as bringing harm or bringing help, I think that goes automatic. You know, I can remember, and many of you probably the same, you know, you try to pull into traffic and somebody doesn't want to let you go. And I remember so funny one time, there was a big space in a line that wasn't moving on the road, and I was in a parking lot, and it was right in front of me, the big space. So I started to pull out where I'd be on the other direction to get to obviously the far side of the road. And the person who had the space in front of them very quickly looked at me and pulled up to block me from going in. And I just sat back and I laughed to myself, and compassion for her is what I felt. Because what kind of life, what kind of peace does that person have to do that? Because my natural inclination, and hopefully yours as well, would be, yeah, take the spot, pull in, help them. You know, it's like you put on your blinker, and the people that you have plenty of space to let you go in front, they speed up so you don't go in front of them. What is this competitive nature? It doesn't even make sense to me, to be honest. This is what I mean by you can recognize good and evil. And I'm not judging that they're evil. I'm saying their actions show just contempt for others. like me first, and that's all that matters. Where I think a more conscious person is more full of love, compassion, empathy, and wants to help others. Now, I do believe you have to first help yourself. It's like put on your oxygen mask first, right? If you give your whole life to others, then you could just die without, because you never took care of yourself, and then now you're not there to help anybody anymore. So you gotta make yourself strong, centered. You gotta develop you, and then you can help the world around you. And that's why if everybody was working on themselves, the world would be this balance of the 5 chi. The emperor would be supported by all the people, and the people would support the emperor would support the people. It would all work together. But that's not what we have. It's like everything's been broken down to its smallest components, and everything's at odds. So when everything's at odds, I'm going to say that's evil. When everything's working together, that's good. Because it's better for everybody when everyone's working together, and it's worse for everybody when everyone's separate. You like that answer? Let's finish. We're going to go to meditation.